In 2011, a United States Special Operations team landed inside Pakistan to kill the world's most wanted man. The helicopters they used were so secret that the United States government did not even acknowledge they existed until one of them crashed in the courtyard of Osama bin Laden's compound and was photographed on live television by the entire world. That helicopter was a Black Hawk, but not one you have ever seen before. Today, we go through all of them, every single H from the very first one, all the way to the machines flying right now. Let's go. What does the H stand for? Helicopter, simple as that. But what most people do not understand is that the H series is not just a list of aircraft. It is a timeline of how America learned to fight from the sky in an entirely new way. Before helicopters, wounded soldiers on the battlefield waited hours or days for medical care. Before helicopters, supplying troops in jungle mountains meant either roads or parachute drops. Helicopters changed both of those things permanently, and the H series is the story of how that happened. H-13 Sioux. This is where the story begins in combat. The H-13 Sioux was a light observation helicopter, small, simple, with a clear bubble canopy that gave the pilot and observer an unobstructed view in every direction. It first flew in 1945, but it was in Korea where it proved what a helicopter could do. H-13s flew medical evacuation missions directly from the battlefield, picking up wounded soldiers and getting them to surgical units in minutes instead of hours. The survival rate for wounded American soldiers in Korea was dramatically higher than in World War II, and the H-13 is a significant reason why. If the name sounds familiar, that is because the H-13 was the helicopter you saw in the opening credits of the television series MASH every week. H-1 Iroquois, the Huey. There is no military helicopter in history more iconic than this one. The H-1 first flew on October 20th, 1956. It was the first American military helicopter powered by a turbine engine instead of a piston engine, which meant more power, more reliability, and far less maintenance. The Army selected it from 20 competing designs. Over 16,000 were eventually built. In Vietnam, the Huey defined an entire era of warfare. 7,000 Hueys were used during that conflict. 3,300 of them were shot down. 2,100 pilots and crew members were killed. That is not a typo. Nearly half of the entire Huey fleet was lost in Vietnam, and yet the Huey kept flying because without it, the entire American strategy in Vietnam collapsed. Hueys inserted infantry into the jungle, resupplied forward bases, evacuated the wounded, and flew as gunships. The sound of the Huey's twin-bladed rotor, that distinctive rhythmic chopping sound, became the defining sound of the Vietnam War. It is still the most recognizable helicopter sound in the world. Quick question. If you had to pick one helicopter that changed warfare more than any other, would you pick the Huey or the Black Hawk? Drop your answer below. H-47 Chinook. The Chinook entered Army service in 1962 and it is still in production today. Over 60 years of continuous service and production. Along with the C-130 Hercules, it is one of the very few aircraft developed in the early 1960s that has never left frontline service. The reason is simple. Nothing else does what the Chinook does. The Chinook has two counter-rotating rotors, one at the front and one at the rear, which means it needs no tail rotor. All engine power goes directly into lift. It can carry nearly 48,000 pounds of cargo. In Afghanistan, where the altitude and heat made the Black Hawk struggle, one Chinook could replace up to 5 Black Hawks in the air assault transport role. One of its most famous maneuvers is the pinnacle landing, hovering with only the rear wheels touching a cliff edge while troops board or exit from the front. It looks physically impossible until you see it done. H-53 Sea Stallion, the largest military helicopter in the American inventory, used by the Marine Corps for heavy lift and special operations, and the helicopter at the center of one of the most catastrophic failures in American military history. On April 24, 1980, 8 RH-53D Sea Stallion helicopters lifted off from the deck of the USS Nimitz in the Arabian Sea. Their mission was Operation Eagle Claw, a secret attempt to rescue 52 American hostages being held at the United States Embassy in Tehran, Iran. The plan was extraordinarily complex. The helicopters would fly 600 miles across Iran in complete darkness, land at a remote salt flat in the desert code-named Desert 1, refuel from C-130 transport aircraft, pick up Delta Force commandos, and then fly 260 miles further to the outskirts of Tehran. It never got that far. 3 of the 8 helicopters developed mechanical failures en route. The mission required a minimum of 6 operational helicopters to proceed. With only 5 still flying, the commander on the ground made the decision to abort. Then, as the American forces were preparing to leave Desert 1, one of the remaining helicopters attempted to reposition on the ground. A blinding dust cloud reduced visibility to 0. The helicopter slid sideways and crashed directly into a C-130 transport aircraft loaded with fuel and Delta Force soldiers. Both aircraft exploded. 8 American servicemen were killed. 5 helicopters were abandoned in the Iranian desert. Photographs of the wreckage were broadcast around the world. President Jimmy Carter later said that the failure to rescue the hostages was the primary reason he lost the 1980 presidential election to Ronald Reagan. The American hostages were not released until the day of Ronald Reagan's inauguration, 444 days after they were first taken. And the disaster at Desert 1 directly led to the creation of the United States Special Operations Command, the organization that would go on to plan and execute the raid on Osama bin Laden 31 years later. One helicopter crash in an Iranian desert changed the entire structure of American Special Operations. H-6 Little Bird, now for the smallest helicopter in the American Special Operations fleet, and arguably the most dangerous to fly. The H-6 Little Bird is so small that it can land in a single parking space. It weighs less than most pickup trucks when empty, and it has been used in some of the most dangerous special operations missions in American history in a way that no other helicopter could manage, because operators do not sit inside the Little Bird. They sit on the outside of it. On small benches mounted to the skids, legs dangling in open air, weapons ready, flying at low altitude into active combat zones. During the Battle of Mogadishu on October 3rd and 4th, 1993, Little Birds were among the first aircraft on the scene when a Black Hawk went down over the city. Chief Warrant Officer Michael Durant's Black Hawk had been shot down by a rocket-propelled grenade. A Little Bird pilot flew directly into the crash site under intense ground fire to attempt a rescue. The street was too narrow and too crowded with armed fighters to land. The pilot hovered inches above the ground while 2 operators jumped off the skids to protect the crash site. The Little Bird then flew out to get reinforcements and medical support, returning multiple times under fire. When the battle was over, 18 American soldiers were dead and 73 were wounded. But without the Little Birds maintaining contact with the crash sites through the night, the casualties would have been significantly higher. H-64 Apache. If the Chinook is the workhorse, the Apache is the hunter. The AH-64 Apache entered service in 1986 and immediately became the most capable attack helicopter ever built. It carries the 30mm M230 chain gun under the nose, capable of firing 625 rounds per minute. It carries Hellfire missiles which can destroy a tank from 8 kilometers away. The radar system on the Longbow variant can detect and classify up to 256 targets simultaneously and engage 16 of them at once, all while flying at low altitude to stay hidden from enemy radar. In the Gulf War of 1991, Apache helicopters fired the very first shots of the entire conflict, destroying Iraqi radar installations in the opening minutes of the air campaign. Not the Air Force, not the Navy. Army helicopters were the first weapons fired in that war. H-60 Black Hawk. And now we come back to where we started. The Black Hawk entered service in 1979 to replace the Huey. The The Army had learned brutal lessons in Vietnam about what helicopters needed to survive in combat. The Black Hawk was designed from the beginning to take hits and keep flying. It can survive rounds up to 23 millimeters hitting the airframe. The fuel system is self-sealing. The rotor blades can withstand hits from 50 caliber rounds. The cockpit seats are armored. Over 5,000 Black Hawks have been built and delivered to more than 36 nations. The Black Hawk family, including all its variants, is the most numerous military helicopter in service anywhere in the world today, with approximately 3,960 units currently flying. But the Black Hawk that the world did not know about until the night of May 2nd, 2011, was something different entirely. The 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, known as the Night Stalkers, operates a classified variant of the H-60 modified with low observable stealth technology, radar-absorbing materials on the fuselage, specially shaped rotor hubs designed to reduce radar return, an acoustically modified tail rotor that dramatically reduces the sound of the aircraft in flight. When one of those helicopters landed in Abbottabad, Pakistani officials photographed the tail section before American forces could destroy it. Chinese military officials were reportedly given access to the wreckage shortly afterward. What they saw and what they learned from that tail section has never been fully disclosed. The United States government still does not officially acknowledge that a stealth Black Hawk exists, and yet the photographs are there for anyone to see. That is the H series. From a bubble canopy scout helicopter in Korea that saved lives with a stretcher, to a machine so secret that its own government will not admit it exists, American military helicopters changed warfare in ways that no other aircraft category can match. They move armies, they save the wounded, they insert special operators into the most dangerous places on Earth, and sometimes they disappear into the night and leave nothing behind but questions. Next time on JetLore, we go back to fixed wings, but not the jets you already know. Trainer aircraft. The aircraft that every single American military pilot has sat in before they ever touched a fighter jet or a bomber. One of these aircraft has produced more military pilots than any other machine in history, and one of them killed so many student pilots that the program was nearly shut down before it ever produced a single combat-ready aviator. That story is next. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you do not miss it.